Premier League Poker is back at the Montesino in the stunning Austrian city of Vienna. 16 of the greatest players on the planet are here with one mission: to be crowned Premier League champion. Welcome to Vienna for this season's Premier League Poker. Tonight the main event gets underway as players do battle for points in a bid to make it to the final table. This season, 16 players are divided into two groups of 8. Both groups will play 4 matches each where they will accumulate points. The winner of each match will receive 16 points, the runner-up will get 11, then it's 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 0 points for coming last. After all matches have played out, the top 3 players in each group will go through to the final table. Those in 4th and 5th place in both groups will play heads up to determine who takes the last 2 spots at the final. The players in 6th, 7th, and 8th positions will be knocked out. It's time to get our first heat underway, so let me introduce you to our players. In seat number 1, the often controversial Luke Full Flush Schwartz. He's as well known for his online poker prowess as he is for his volatility at the live table. In seat number 2, it's Tony G. With a 2nd and a 3rd place finish in previous Premier Leagues, he's looking to go one better and take home the title and maybe send someone home on their bike. In seat number 3, it's British pro Mathew Frankland. He managed to tear himself away from online poker long enough to storm his way through the global qualifier and win his way into the Premier League main event. In seat number 4, with over $16 million in live tournament cashes and a poker resume bursting with enough titles to spin your head, it's Erik Seidel. In seat number 5, from Brooklyn, New York, with a WPT title and a super high roller title, it's Eugene Katchalov. In seat number 6, it's our current Premier League mixed game champion and the 2011 World Poker Tour Player of the Year, Andrew Frankenberger. In seat number 7, it's British poker superstar Sam Trickett, well known for being one of the best UK cash game players in the high-stakes game, and he's also the 2011 Partouche Poker Tour main event champion. And in seat number 8, it's Phil Laak. He's the 2009 World Open champion for Party Poker, and he's also a World Series of Poker bracelet holder. The first match is about to get underway here in Vienna, so let's go over to your hosts, Jessie May and Vanessa Selbst.
Thanks, Kara. So excited for the beginning of Premier League Poker 5 and thrilled to be here with a player playing in Group B. She's a Premier League newbie, one of the favorites perhaps, Vanessa Selbst. Now, Vanessa, you've had a look at this format. For you, is it a matter of that best poker players are going to win, or are there specialist skills that'll work here?
You know, I think this is a really unique format. It starts out with sort of deeper stacks, but then quickly goes into that short stack territory. So I think the players that will excel here are the ones that have experience both playing the deep stack cash games and also playing more tournaments, even online tournaments sometimes, when you're playing that shorter stack format. In addition, this is a really interesting format because there aren't any antes. What that means is the more aggressive players, the ones that are used to picking up a lot of chips by stealing the blinds, are going to have to hold back a little bit and realize that there's not as much value in that, and they might want to play a tighter style. So the ones I think that can adapt to this format are the ones that are going to excel here.
I love the list of names, so exciting for Group A, but who do you make the favorites?
Well, you know, everybody's a great player, honestly. It's Premier League, but I would say if I had to pick 3, I would take Sam Trickett, Eugene Katchalov, and Luke Schwartz.
So important to get a great start in Premier League poker. We'll see who does that coming up next. It's the day, it's the game, it's the Premier League. Vanessa Selbst will be playing in Group B, so helping us to kick off Group A by watching the goings-ons for this first league match. And Vanessa, you mentioned Sam Trickett here. You can see him there as one of the favorites. What is it about Sam?
I don't know. I mean, I think Sam just has a really great command of the game. His instincts are great. He's got good fundamentals. Honestly, I've just, I don't think I've ever seen him not playing extremely well. So I definitely think he's one of the favorites going into this match.
He took the tournament down this year. That was your biggest cash ever, the Partypoker Poker Tour. But there's so many bracelets, so many big titles, so much money won on this table. I mean, it's a fearsome lineup.
Yeah, it definitely is. It'll be interesting to see how people adjust to this format. I think a lot of these guys are used to playing the bigger buy-ins, the deeper stack tournaments. So it's a little bit of a different game here.
Starting things off right away, the raise from Frankenberger, the call from Trickett, a call from Laak. I mean, do you think because of this format we're going to be seeing more flops early on while the blinds are low?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the blinds are low and there's a lot of play. You know, you see Luke just calling with jacks here. I think he's probably trying to play it a little more conservative to begin with. You know, it's like a final table in the sense that, you know, there are points for each place you finish in. So if you play a hand like jacks, which is a strong hand but can be beaten, if you play it very strong early on, you have a chance of going out, and that's obviously disastrous for your future heat. So you see him playing a little bit more close to the chest.
So pretty standard for him to just call there. And then the check call now on the paired flop?
Definitely. I mean, he's feeling really good about his hand right now. You know, Andy's going to be betting some cards up. And that's, you know, that's one of the problems with playing jacks this way, is you give your opponent a chance to catch up, and we'll see if he winds up losing a lot of chips.
These two have history from the Premier League mixed game, and they've exchanged, had a little bit of a verbal battle online.
15.
Yeah.
And the first pot together, first head, there might be a little bit of a psychological war here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that king is a great card to bluff. A lot of the times if you raise with a hand, like if Andy has a hand like 10-9 suited even, you know, ace-10, ace-queen, he's definitely going to be betting that queen very often. And I think Luke is thinking his hand is a lot stronger than he thinks it is, but he makes a good fold. You know, when the spade gets there and the king, he's only beating a bluff at this point, and I think he makes a good lay down there.
It is great because also, what's he going to do on the river, right?
Right. I mean,
expensive.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's some people who might decide to call again and hope that Andy would shut down if he, you know, didn't hit something by the river if he was bluffing. But I think Luke realized that hand is just that card is just really bad for his hand, and he made a good lay down.
Frankenberger taking the first pot and the first lead in this Group A. And Andy's a guy who, you know, he's had so much success so quickly in poker, but there seems to be this feeling that he still has something to prove among the top players at the top level. This is the chance to do it here. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think he, you know, everyone's watching his every move. I don't know. I wonder if he's feeling a little bit of pressure, you know. I know some of his plays in earlier Premier Leagues have received some criticism, so I think you were commentating on some of those hands. So
yeah, it's funny about Andy as well. You know, there was only 2 guaranteed seats for this Premier League. One for the WPT Player of the Year, one for the Mixed Game Champion. He won both of those.
Don't worry, I know that you commentated on me in the World Cup. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
You know, no matter how much success you have, there's always going to be people on both sides of the coin. You're always kind of in a battle trying to prove yourself to match your results.
Absolutely.
Trickett's opened and Laak has flatted, then check on the flop, I guess. And Trickett's picked up a nice turn, but are you barreling a lot of rivers if you're Sam? What you get called?
I think so. I think he's going to realize that Phil often, you know, when he checks that flop, he's going to bet with a lot of the hands that have a 7. A lot of the hands that Phil would have called with pre-flop that have a 7 have a really strong hand on the flop, the 8-7, 6-7.
I think he just got there. I check.
I'm actually surprised he didn't barrel that. You know, I would expect Phil to have, if he had a hand like 8-7, 6-7, he's going to be betting the flop. So I think, you know, I think what it came down to is Sam didn't expect Phil to call with a hand that weak on the turn, and so he, you know, he didn't want to, you know, bet into what he perceived to be a stronger
aces
range.
are dangerous.
And I mean, if there's a key to this format, Vanessa, obviously there's a lot of keys, but those pots that anybody can win, especially when it comes to taking chips away from another player, keeping yourself just ahead of the pack, really important to grab those.
It's not any fun. Probably not
raise 6,000.
When the bunny's got the gun after.
It's true.
Yeah, when you look at you know, the top players here, I mean, as you said, the Katchalovs and the Sam Tricketts who are playing in just the highest, and Seidel, the highest stakes, the highest buy-ins. Phil Laak does seem like he's going to be at least result-wise a little outmatched.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, you know, this is just such an elite group that I do think, you know, everyone's just really strong, and Phil, yeah.
Well, now why would we see Seidel here? It looks like he's going to make a 3-bet small blind. Identical situation to one Luke faced in the first hand.
Well, it's not identical. You know, here Seidel is out of position, and he's facing a bet and a call already. You know, Luke was in position. He had only had the open raise, so it conceivably could have been a heads-up pot, even if he just called. Here, if Erik just calls, he's playing out of position against 2 players. You know, I think he really feels like with Sam opening, Sam's a very aggressive player, and you know, he feels like Jax is just too strong a hand. And I would agree with that.
Look at the size of this 3-bet. I mean, 6 up to 24. That's really on the large size, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We see Sam here. You know, it's just such a tough spot when you have those middle pocket pairs here. You know, you're calling, you want to hit your set, but if you don't, it's just gonna be really tough to play.
Yeah, these two have some interesting history. I mean, incredible that Trickett's called, but I think it was the $250,000 buy-in, the biggest buy-in tournament ever up to this stage, and Seidel was first in Australia at that, and Trickett was second. And if you're Trickett right now, what are you thinking? What are your options?
I mean, you know, this is a really interesting flop. You've got, you know, you've got 6 outs. You know, if Seidel was re-raising with a hand like ace, king, or ace, queen, he's missed. If he had just a total bluff on a squeeze play like a, you know, an ace-5 suited or something, he's missed as well. I think 7s is way too strong a hand to fold. He's going to call at least once here. I think the real decision comes in on the turn.
But you're really calling against Seidel's whole range, aren't you? I mean,
yeah, I mean, you're calling, you know, against Seidel's whole range, like you said, you know, like I was saying, I mean, ace, queen, or ace, king. He's also got a lot of just really random, you know, I don't know how often Sam thinks that he's just squeezing with total, you know, total air.
Seidel, and Seidel's checked there because he feels like if he bets again, he can never get called by worse.
I think, you know, I don't think that he'll never get called by worse. I think he's checking for a little bit of deception. He's not comfortable. He's definitely, it's a dangerous flop. He's not comfortable putting his whole stack in level 1. So I think now, you know, when Sam Trickett checks back, I think it defines, Erik gets a lot more information. Sam's a very tricky player. If Erik bets out and Sam raises, which he's very capable of doing with a hand like 9-8 or something, it just puts Erik in such a bad spot. And that's the power of position right there. You know, so now, you know, he's chosen to play it a little bit more passively after the turn, and you know, I don't hate that play at all. I like it because you know, if he bets and Sam raises, he's just in a really, really uncomfortable spot at that point. So I think that's why he decided to play it a little bit more passively early on.
A lot of respect given by both players on the turn and on the river, but it's Seidel taking a sizable pot and grabbing the chip lead.
It would have been interesting to see, you know, had Erik bet the turn, what Sam would have done. I could see an option for folding, I can see an option for calling, and I can see an option for raising. It probably wouldn't have been a raise, but Sam is capable of anything, so it would have been fun to see.
Because this group of 8 will play 4 times, you're going to get these personal dynamics that are going to develop, and I already feel one between Tony G and Seidel. But maybe everybody is kind of targets Tony G in a way.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think Tony G, I also think Phil Laak falls into this boat of the guys that sort of through their talking, they wind up getting more action than they really should. You know, everything I've seen from Tony G, you know, he bluffs occasionally when everyone's weak, but most of the time it seems like if someone's interested in the pot and he puts a lot of chips in, he's got a hand. But
oh, you're so right. I mean, he's at the end of the day, he's a tight guy.
Yeah, you know, and it's just his talking. It just puts people on this crazy tilt, and they're just, you know, shoveling there. They can't wait to put chips in against him. It's really, you know, it's one of his skills, honestly. It's another aspect of the game.
Well, Seidel's opened this pot late, but gotten 3 callers. Now it's been checked around.
These are the fun pots to see. Andy has the best hand, but how can he know that when there's 3 spades and 3 overcards out there? I mean, this is the kind of pot where, you know, it's good that Andy takes the lead there, and I just think this is one of those pots where anybody who wants it can come get it.
Yeah, because what sort of bet is it? I mean, you're not betting for value. You're just betting from your position and to take it.
Right, exactly. I mean, it didn't matter that he had 2 5s in his hand, honestly. You know, he got kind of lucky that no one had a big spade with their big ace. But, you know, I think he just saw a lot of weakness on the flop and hoped that no one hit a queen and just decided to go for it. That was a nice aggressive play there.
The thing is, neither one's wrong.
You know how they all think? They all think the same. It's easy. You guys are all too spontaneous. Tony, Phil, I have no idea what you're thinking.
I'm stuck with you.
There you
We're
see,
probably
like,
even lifetime.
you know,
You
Eugene
never
folding
really
that king
gamble, but
10
I'm stuck
under the
to
gun.
Tom's one lifetime, so
That's
I want
just,
a
you know,
chance
there's
to
no
either get
antes.
buried
Then
more
you're
or
gonna
get
see
unstuck.
players playing a lot more
Either one's
positional
okay.
poker. He's much more likely to open a hand like 7-5 offsuit on the button than a hand like king 10 offsuit under the gun. When you don't know what's behind you and you're not gonna be able to face a re-raise.
Right. I mean, there's certain rules about this format that you really are going to have trouble breaking, right? You know, playing too loose, out of position in the low level. But Schwartz here, this is a wrinkle.
Well, you know, I think he's it's a great play. I mean, he has the ace blocker. The Laak's going to open raise. We see with an ace-8 off, but he's just not the type of guy that's going to take a flop.
Are you outplaying me, or did you wake up with a hand? Because you could have outplayed me.
It made the game more fun.
Okay, so it's a little outplay time. All right, kid.
We are halfway through the first level, and it's Seidel and Frankenberger who are at the top of the pile. But the stacks are still pretty even. It's early days in this first heat, and all of our players are hoping for a good start to this year's Premier League.
It's not like they called up a bunch of fish and said, hey guys, we're going to put together a poker. They called the best in the world. And guys, they all made their 125K from poker. So it's not an easy lineup. It's basically, you pray you can get away with your bluffs and you pray the cards break your way.
Usually at a table you look around and there's one guy you want to go after. At a table like mine, there's really just no weak spots.
Going into this first game, I'm just going to treat it as a standard cash game really. The payout structure for the points looks pretty standardized, so just try and move up and get all the chips.
It's a big deal if you can win or come in second the first one. It gets you to a great position, so that's definitely what you're shooting for.
Today's heat is going to be more like a regular sit and go, I think, whereas heats 2, 3, and 4, more strategy will be involved, I imagine, based on the way today goes, so it's going to be fun.
Really just want to do better than I did last year. With the first match, just good to get, first or second, so I'm kind of comfortable for the rest of the heat games.
It's like an honour to come and play, and it's obviously a really prestigious event, so winning it would be even nicer.
Expectations are massive. I want to be the best player here throughout, and I want to take the title. That's the only thing I'm interested in. Destroy them.
This first Premier League match continues after the break.
Welcome back to Season 5 of Premier League Poker from the Austrian city, Vienna. Our first league match is underway, so let's get back to the action.
Historically, in the Premier League, it's such a disadvantage to go out first, especially in the first match. It really it reduces your options from the start.
Absolutely. It's tough too. I mean, if you go out first, you know that in order to make it to the final table in the future matches, you're going to have to come in first, second, or third. So you wind up playing a more aggressive style, but there's also points and money to be won for those points. And if you wind up playing aggressively and then you go out last again, well now, if you go out last all 4 heats, you actually leave here empty-handed, and no one wants to be in that position either. So it's definitely good to put some points on the board early.
Tell me a little bit about Katchalov, because he's someone that I'm not as familiar with. I just know him by his reputation and his record, but he's like #1 in cashes over the last couple of years.
Well, so what's his reputation? What do you know about him?
That he's just, everyone thinks he's the best.
It's a nice reputation to have.
But I've never seen him play.
Yeah, I mean, I think he plays a similar style to a lot of the players that I think you see consistently being cited as the best. That's the Sam Tricketts and the Elkies. He's a little bit probably tighter than Sam.
Franklin flopped a set there. It was a G open, and he tried to fast play it. Couldn't get any action.
Yeah, I mean, those kinds of boards, Queen 7-5, you just got to hope that someone has something. Unfortunately, he's struggling to find action with the aces in the set. We haven't really seen any showdowns here yet, have we?
Just one, a couple checks, and that's it. But that leaderboard, Trickett has lost a third of his stack. Hard to say he's done anything wrong, Vanessa, but you would have coming in, made him one, and you did one of the favorites here. He'd expect himself to do really well.
Absolutely. Just shows, what kind of variance there is in poker. But it's a long time before he's out of it here. It's still early on.
But having lost a third of your stack, you do need to change gears slightly, don't you?
Yeah, well, he's not really in a very aggressive gear right now. I don't think he would have, you know, what's he been raising? Ace, queen, ace, king, pocket sevens. You know, he wouldn't have played any of those hands any differently. Unfortunately, people haven't been seeing that. So people, I think, are assuming he's a lot more aggressive than he is. And I think that's also what led him with the sevens to feel like he needed to call pre-flop, feel like he needed to call on the flop, because he knows that people think that he's raising more than he is. So sevens is, you know, quite a strong hand.
Is this typical Katchalov, you know, fold the first 12 hands and then 3-bet the 4-3 in position?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think he... Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, this is great.
And why not barrel the flop if you're Katchalov there? I mean, are you giving up?
No, he's not giving up at all. What he's trying to do is he's trying to, you know, if you bet the flop, what you're doing is you're sort of polarizing your range, meaning you're now saying I have ace-king or king-queen or I don't have anything, you know. I think what he's, you know, he's worried about Erik playing back at him. By checking, he's, you know, Erik knows that he's able to check that with jacks or queens or tens, and so he expects the turn to go check, and then Eugene will bet, and then Erik will fold a lot of the times.
And actually, if the diamond had hit on the river, Katchalov wins this pot a lot with the check fold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's representing tens. You know, that's exactly what's going to happen. Is a lot of the time on the turn, Eugene's going to call. He's saying, I have pocket tens, I have pocket jacks, or even aces. If the diamond doesn't come, I think Erik just gives up at the pot, you know, and I think Eugene's played it really well.
So far.
Yeah, well, you know, he hasn't out low. I don't think anything's really going to be happening. You know, he doesn't see that Erik made it up flush. I mean, he might feel like, sometimes you feel in those spots when you decide to do the delayed continuation bet, and then someone bets into you twice, you double... You know, you question yourself. You say, was that the right play, or did that person just steal it from me with queen high? I mean, if your checking on the flop makes the person with queen high steal it from you, then your check on the flop was really bad. So you're always going to be questioning yourself. But I think at the end of the day, Eugene is, you know, he's a smart player, and he's just deciding to, you know, trying to represent a wide range of hands and use his position to take it down. And I think that would have worked if Erik hadn't his flush.
Two guys who know each other pretty well, I guess, Seidel and Katchalov. I mean, sitting right there side by side, I think are they 1 and 2 in as far as most money won when you take out the World Series main event over the last couple of years?
16.
When Trickett and Katchalov, or Trickett and Seidel?
Seidel and Katchalov. No,
I have not. You know, honestly, I don't know that stat. I know Trickett's won a lot of money.
16 minutes.
16.
Yeah,
Oh,
Katchalov has won a lot as well. I mean, it'd be tough to say, you know. In the last few years, I don't know.
Who's counting? They've won a lot.
Good luck, boys. They like run around together, you know.
Trickett's open from the button, and Schwartz, I guess the re-raise to about 16.
1 bet 20.
Nice flop for Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not going to get any action here, though. Well, you know, this is the kind of flop, though, that Sam might actually decide to bluff. But I think early on, he's just playing it more aggressively. I'm sorry, playing it a little more passively. You know, like you said, he's down in his chip counts. If he had a starting stack, this might be the kind of board where he might say, well, it's really hard for Luke to have a hand that can stack off here, so I'm going to put in a raise and see what happens. I think that's what he's thinking about here. Obviously, we know it would be a really bad time. But, you know, if Luke doesn't have the ace of clubs in his hand, even if he has ace-queen with the queen of clubs, or if he has red ace-king, or even if he has red queens, you know, it's just a really tough spot for him if Sam raises. And so I think Sam knows that. And he loves applying. That's the thing about Sam. He loves applying pressure in the situations where people can't usually stand very much pressure.
You need a hand to do it, be the good players, though. That's the difference.
Right, so you have to have a hand there, right? Because when they're weak, you can just do it with anything.
You know what's really annoying? That was a chirp. If he's chirping after he wins the pot, that means he didn't have anything.
No, he just knew it was good. It was good timing.
I'm so depressed right now for missing the flop.
Sam, that's the thing. I mean, if he had more chips, you know, he realizes that it's going to cost him a large chunk of the stack to make that play. And Luke it's not, you know, Phil Laak. If Luke has 2 red queens, he's not going anywhere. He's not loving it, but he's not going anywhere. You know, there are other players that might just fold red queens right there if he raised, but he knows Luke's not one of them, so he decided to just fold the hand.
There's also this dynamic, I think, going on where, you know, Trickett's opened. Now he's opened 7 or 8 pots. He hasn't shown any of the hands. Luke's the kind of guy that when someone's done that, he's going to start re-raising with any 2 cards.
Right.
Franklin
wow.
now. Yeah, big hand
He's
here.
got the pocket kings. Wow.
17 targets.
Oh my god. Oh wow.
Well, these are the kind of spots you don't get away from in the Premier League, do you?
This is, you know, honestly, this is button versus small blind.
So fourth plays 30 points.
Matt knows. I mean, I think Matt's. He might decide just to flat call because I don't think he expects Erik to think that he's going to 4-bet light, if that makes sense. Like, basically, you know, if he re-raises, I think right now, given the dynamic, he's announcing his hand is a very strong one. So I think he'll just flat call.
Wow. Right you are. It's great for Frankland in a sense that Locke opened it up because the cold 4-bet. Oh my gosh, poor Seidel.
Wow. Oh, did Locke? Oh, Locke opened it, and
and Franklin 3-bet.
Okay.
For the button, so it was a cold 4-bet from the small blind for Seidel.
Got it. Well, then in that case, you know, this is it'd be interesting to see if Erik can get away. I mean, I don't know. I don't know of how loose he expects Matt to be defending this. I would expect it to be quite tight. This is
But there is, well, Seidel's got the ace of diamonds now, and obviously ace king is well in Franklin's range here, right?
Absolutely. Ace king is definitely in his range.
So with the pot 150,000, Seidel's got about twice that back. What do you want to do? Do you want to bet to get it in?
No.
Do you want to check to keep it small? Do you want to bet? You can't bet to fold.
I think with the ace of diamonds, absolutely. I think this is the perfect spot to check. I think we're going to see Matt make a bet about a little less than half the pot, probably about 65,000, something in that range. And Erik's definitely just going to call. Or not definitely. I mean, I would expect him just to call and use his sort of read. I think he's very worried about the kings or the queens. I can't imagine he's going to fold. He's got to call at least once, I would think.
I mean,
really
Seidel knows that if Franklin has ace king, he doesn't have a diamond in his hand. So, I mean,
I don't think he expects Matt to bet ace king that often
without a diamond. So he would have
Right.
just checked the turn back. So
think that's
that
right.
hand is now out of his range.
I think that's right. I think that's right. You know, like I said, you know, with this dynamic, there's no antes. It's early on, the 3-bet and the cold 4-bet. I think they're both realizing that they both have very strong ranges, and so that's what you saw. Franklin, he just flatted it pre-flop. He didn't want to get the chips in. Seidel is nervous with the king and the queen out there. They both understand this dynamic and the situation really well, and I think we're going to see Erik call once, and then probably fold if he doesn't improve on the river.
Seidel he's an anachronism in the poker world. People consider him the only kind of only guy over 30 really, still having lots of success in poker, has no success on the internet. I mean, do you consider him someone whose live reads are huge? Well, no, apparently not.
Yeah.
What can he get Franklin off of right now?
No, I don't. Did he raise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
It's
like
like
this.
a click raise. And
I think he's really just hoping to stack ace king, but I honestly don't think that is.
All in?
There you go.
Yeah, you know, I don't like that play right now.
That's a cool.
And yeah, especially because of the league format, Vanessa, that should come into it in your mind.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you don't want to go out eighth.
Seidel needs a diamond.
You know, you've got 11 outs, but you know, usually, honestly, the ranges are going to be stronger. I don't think that. I don't think the situation is one where, you know, Matt obviously, what Erik's thinking there is that Matt had the button and he's 3-betting a wider range. And he might be right, you know, he might be 3-betting hands like King Jack, King 10, things like that. But what I don't think he's calling the cold 4-bet with those hands.
First level, 21 hands, blinds now go to 2,000 and 4,000.
You know, we see Frankenberger, he's in second place, and like I said, a lot of players haven't given him a lot of credit, but he's made a couple, you know, really nice aggressive plays so far. He's taken down pots with the 5s when there were 3 overcards out there, just sort of making that move. You know, I think he's someone to watch out for.
What I love about poker is it's the ultimate intellectual game. It brings together a lot of my interests and skills. Before poker, I was an equity derivatives trader on Wall Street for 14 years, and I absolutely loved my job. I just was ready to do something else and grow more as a person, and I really just stumbled into poker. If you ask me my greatest accomplishment as a poker player, I would start by saying WPT Player of the Year for this past year, Season 9. Right after that, and a close second, is winning a World Series bracelet. I also won the Premier League Mixed Game Championship, which I'm particularly proud of. I like the role of the underdog, and no one really gave me a shot at it, so that was particularly satisfying.
Must make a straight, has to catch a queen. He did it! He caught a queen on the river. One more time, Frankenberger has made a pat hand on the river to not only win the pot and to knock somebody out, but this time to win the tournament. It was just fate and destiny for Frankenberger to take down this tournament. The way he did it was dramatic. The way he knocked these players out at the final table, extra dramatic.
I'm the first to admit I don't make great decisions every single time, but I think things through, and I have a unique way of approaching the game. And so being humble on the poker table is a huge advantage for me. I've been looking forward to this tournament for a long time. Winning this event would definitely be one of the highlights of my career. This is a real opportunity to show that I am able to compete with these guys, and it would be a huge, huge accomplishment for me.
We'll be back after the break as the first league match continues here in Vienna. Welcome back to Premier League Poker 5. There's still 8 at the table for the first league match of the season. Let's head back to your commentary team.
Second level now. When you talked about, you know, Seidel perhaps having trouble in this format, there is this idea that unless you're an internet player and have played, say, 10,000 sit-and-goes, it's that 30 big blind and down stack and stuff like that. If you make a mistake there, you're history. You're toast in this format.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most of the play. I mean, after 3 or 4 levels, the play winds up being 25 or 30 blinds. And you really, there are some players who that's all they play, especially the internet tournament players are so used to playing with those stacks.
Yeah, I took that beat.
Laak's flatted in the small blind with the ace-king. Franklin open. I mean, is this deceptive? Does it have to do with Franklin's got so many chips?
You know, I think it's deceptive. I think Locke, out of all people, could get away with 3-betting just because he's going to be perceived to have a tighter range, and he can bluff a lot of people off a lot of hands. But you know, it's definitely something where he doesn't want to inflate the pot with a hand like ace-king, you know, early on out of position. But now he's obviously hit the best possible flop.
Check once, but why check twice?
He's just, you know, I think he thinks that, you know, like I said, this is sort of what I was talking about with Phil. He's a tighter player, but he'll play his strong hands weak as well. It's just part of his overall strategy that you see Phil do this time and time again.
I would talk to you during the hand, but I'll mess something up, so.
It's like last time. You know, I think we're going to see Luke shut down here probably. That's a really bad card for him to bluff. He's, I think, made some mistakes before against Phil Laak, sort of where Phil has slow played a big hand against him. I think part of this is Phil thinking that Luke's just like crazy and going to like bluff all his hands. Luke's now thinking, well, does Phil have a pair of 8s? Can I get him off a pair of 8s or a pair of 10s? But I think ultimately he's going to check behind. Especially he's got a little bit of showdown value with the 7 if Locke has like a king of spades kind of a hand.
Right, because I mean, if he does make a bet here, it's to try and get Locke off a particular hand that beats him. I mean, is it the 10 jack or something like that?
You know, I think the thing with Luke that I've noticed is that he thinks that people are folding bigger hands than they actually fold to him. I think if he makes a bet here, it's going to be a really big bet. And it's to get him off exactly like what you said, a 10 jack. I think if he makes a bet, it's going to be like a pot-sized bet. Like, you know, at least 40,000.
One bet, 50,000.
I call. Yeah, 8 is good.
8 call. Showdown.
Say 55,000. That's exactly what I was talking about. I think he knew. I think it's a bad spot. Honestly, he gets carried away sometimes. He thinks people are folding bigger hands than they are, but that's what Phil does too. You know, Phil loves playing his big hands slowly, and I think Luke just thought he wouldn't check twice with the ace, and he was wrong about that. And so he bet the pot because he thinks that Phil's not going to make a big call with a pair of 10s. And that might have been right, but we won't know because Phil played that hand really well.
And that one worked to perfection for Phil Laak up into second. There will be this interesting dynamic. I mean, I don't know if Franklin should take advantage of it, but as long as Seidel waits to get his chips in, can't Franklin exert a lot of pressure on the other players?
Yeah, I mean, he should be. He's not, you know, it's still 8-handed is the problem. So when you're in early position, you know, you're not going to be able to raise so wide just because there's probably going to be people waking up with hands behind you. I think if this were 6 or 5-handed, we would see Franklin opening a lot of hands. But it's just not the situation yet where you really can get 2 out of line. He'll open up a little bit for sure, but he's not going to go crazy yet with so many people still in the game.
No, I under-repped it. That's all it happened.
Locke is, and he's to me, he's a master at this. I think this is the delayed needle. You know, you don't go right in for the kill after you beat someone in a pot. But now, one hand later, and probably for the next 20 minutes, he'll slowly, slowly work it into to Schwartz's ribs.
I don't like all those spades. You can win it. Oh, I thought he just bet.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was heads up. I thought it was heads up. My bad.
That's all right.
They know I had ace king or ace queen when I fold, anyways, and with no spade. So it's like it's playing a hand up, anyways. You know. But honestly, I thought it was just heads up. Sorry, Tony.
Thanks. Makes it hard now, harder.
$125,000 just to sit down. 16 ways, that makes $2 million in the prize pool, plus the $200,000 added by the sponsor. $400,000 given out to each group during the heat stages, and then $1.4 million at the final table. And when you think about it like that, there's such a, it's like the only goal is getting to the final table. Funny that, Seidel, he's looking at the value of staying in now with his chips as far greater than the value of just trying to get in a good spot. I mean, that's...
Absolutely. I think it's just a question of, well, when you open with 12 big blinds, everybody realizes that you're not folding. So you might as well just stick it in there and get it in pre before you have to worry about missing the flop and whatever.
Fun little pot that is about to happen. Eugene's opened early for a min raise, or up to, I think it was a min raise actually, and called by Locke, and then Schwartz on the button.
Thank you.
Or behind the button, who certainly could have 3-bet the king-queen suited.
But this is the kind of stuff we're going to see from Schwartz, and why I would like to see Phil Locke 4-bet him pre-flop is because you see, like with these more marginal hands, the king-queens, he's just taking flops. His 3-betting early on is just extremely polarized. You know, he doesn't want to get raised when he has a hand like king-queen, so he just decides to take a flop. We saw him 3-bet the ace-4, but he's not 3-betting the king-queen. He's not 3-betting the jacks. Against a player like that, the way to beat them is to
4-bet them light.
4-bet them light, exactly. So I would like to see Phil do that with the ace-8, but of course that's not Phil's style. Anyway, here we have an interesting flop for sure.
And the Schwartz-Locke dynamic continues.
Float some kind of something.
Heads up.
I think I was going to say Locke shuts down a lot here.
He's going to shut down here too. He's going to check call this turn.
And he should be, right? I mean, Schwartz
oh wow, I stand corrected. I guess he's taking a more defensive line. This is a great spot for Schwartz to bluff, honestly.
You know, what does Locke do? I mean, does Locke think that it's possible that Schwartz is just completely naked here? Was just calling to bluff the turn with nothing at all but overcards?
No, he says that, but I think he realizes he's not. I think once he makes a pair of 8s, he's honestly scared. I think he's scared of getting pushed off the hand if he checks. Luke's gonna, afraid to call a big bet. So he's really just trying to freeze him up with a smaller kind of bet and to get a little bit of value for the hand against a hand like a 7-5 or a diamond draw. And it looks like it's working. You know, Luke is now nervous. You know, Phil's a tighter player. He's leading into 3 people twice. Does he have a set?
If you weren't so bad, I'd call one more time. But...
See, he's just scared.
I see a river.
Yeah,
no
let's see it.
Just see it. No,
let's see it. Let's see it. Come on, it could be legit.
No one
Jesse, can we see it? Beju, somebody. We all want to see it.
You could have done it by now. You could have done it by now.
Really good. We want to see it.
We
want to see it. Come on. Let's see the river.
We just want to see a river card.
I want to see if I get there.
Come on, guys.
Show it to the camera. Just show it to the camera. So no one knows.
This opens it up.
You filled up.
I mean, you know.
You filled up. You filled up.
One thing about Schwartz is he's he's got this weird honesty about him. I mean, anytime he folds a hand, if a person asks him what he has, he tells them. You know, sort of like he announces his reasons for things all the time, and never lies.
3 fold, 4 fold, 5 fold, 6 fold. Seven raised to 8,000. 8 fold.
Okay, here we have a button versus Luke in the big blind with jacks. I don't think
25.
that Sam is going to get out of line, but this is a spot where if it were a different scenario, if Sam had fewer chips, you might see he might put in a 4-bet here, but you know, I'm not sure just with the game flow. This is the kind of spot though, the suited ace, you've got the blocker, you wonder whether someone's just messing with you in the blinds.
It's the second time he's raised Schwartz's big blind, the second time Schwartz has re-raised him.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going into this dynamic. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a 4-bet fold from Sam, but the stacks are just a bit awkward for it.
Good hand.
This is the thing. Once Sam has thought this long, it's pretty obvious, unless he's just a master Academy Award-winning actor,
right,
that he doesn't have aces, right? So now if he 4-bets, it's like Luke almost has to show up with whatever he has in his hand. So now I think 4-betting light, he feels like, is out of the question. And at this point, it's like, do I shove in 50 big blinds? And I just think it's way too much.
Just take.
Whoa.
All in.
It's not too much.
Wow.
Nice.
Showdown plus.
Wow.
Did you have it last time?
I had it last time. I had ace king last time.
And king jack suited.
Yeah, I think that's just a little too much. He hated the spot. Like I said, 30 bigs, it would have gone in already. 40 bigs, probably still would have gone in. 50, I just think it's too much. And I think.
Well, I mean, Trickett's behind, he's all in, but when you look at Schwartz, only with 10,000 back, this very pivotal. What a flop.
There we go.
5. What type of insurance?
There's the sweat.
For both their Premier Leagues, looks like one's going to be Bagel.
That's a fake card. Gives everyone something.
And Trickett now, what is it, 12 outs or so?
Black with no
You take
ace.
any black
I'll take the black.
Just any black card. You take the risk that it's an ace.
Oh, wow.
It never goes wrong.
It never goes wrong.
He'll be feeling unlucky, and to be fair, he is. Luke Schwartz for Sam Trickett right back in. Luke will be saying that's how he runs.
And
you
how much
see?
does Erik Seidel love that, by the way?
Right, he just made him a point, theoretically.
Yeah.
Luke Schwartz, he was stunned silent there, I think. Down to 10,000 now.
It's got to be a first.
And for Sam Trickett, you can see the benefit of that big double up.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge.
He's got hope chips.
You know when you know you've got 30%, you don't want to fold.
All in. Things were not running well.
We have a new chip leader.
You have to see where you stand, you know? You have to, like, let the faith decide.
Find out if you're lucky today or not, you know?
Find out it's your day. Like, how long can you keep just folding?
It's too hard. It's like, I can't keep folding.
You put the pressure on. You could have folded the jacks. It was really good. Like, it could have been players that folded it.
Think about all the people that aren't as lucky.
And listen to
as you are.
Tony G. Found a reason to talk. Happy you see someone's in pain and he's gaining a point.
You know, like for today, you're the lucky guy. You know, now he gets to have the day. And if you weren't gambling, you wouldn't know that.
It's the thing I love about Tony G.
You have no idea.
He only talks at inappropriate times. You know, you'd never see him talking at an appropriate time.
7 raised to 8,000. 8 fold.
Yeah.
How much you got, Erik? 60? More, 70.
Yeah.
He's building up, too.
Building up. Yeah, I'm building up.
Anyway, someone
I know it's
69.
improve. I know.
I guess it's really half a dozen of one, 10 of another for Schwartz here, isn't it? No, you have to call, don't you?
Never in a million years.
Yeah, you have to call.
That's it.
I don't know what he's thinking about.
He's thinking about the 2 of hearts.
What is he doing? I mean, I guess he's thinking he can get a whole other orbit. You know, he's thinking that
Doubled him up when he obviously
he gets 7 more hands before his big blind to put it in.
So you just call the turn and try and peel an ace through a
I might
dime.
even fold the turn, honestly.
Jack
So
10's a
obviously
pretty
has
good
a
hand
set.
there for 2 big blinds.
You can't have
Feels
ace
like
king
it.
or...
No, you can't have ace king, of
course you can't.
And oh my gosh, look at this. G's gonna go broke here. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing, but Schwartz.
I can't wait. I want to see this. And can you imagine if Sam hadn't won that last hand? It's just funny how close it works.
Tony is like, he's been the happiest guy at the table for the last 30 seconds. And
with the nut flush draw and the
now,
whole thing, how's he supposed to?
I mean, how should G be playing this hand anyway?
Well, I think he's going to play it fast if I know Tony. Yep, there we go, you know. He's raising. Now it's Trickett, you know, Trickett's just like, couldn't be happier right now. Trickett might actually re-raise himself, you know, he might. Sometimes with these kinds of flops, there's like, first of all, when you have sevens, you would like to see the money going right now.
But
yeah,
there is an idea in case Tony's bluffing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, call is the more standard play, I think, but, you know, because he feels like he's going to get a lot of value from a queen anyway, which is absolutely right. But, you know, depending on your history, you know, you might want to, you know, at least when you call, you're sort of giving away that you have something in your hand. Sometimes when you re-raise, people think that you could still be bluffing. So
now, I mean, this is obviously a complete cooler, but is there going to come a level where it's not a cooler? Is there going to come a level if Trickett raises right now, where G should be thinking about anything but getting it all in?
Well, this is the problem, right? Like, if he raises now,
7 call.
It was 60 people down to 3.
You know, that's the thing. Like, a lot of scare cards, a jack or a 10. Now if he bets and then Sam, see, wow. Sam hates that card, obviously. I mean, I guess Sam has been a genius, really. I mean, now he can get away from the hand.
The 7's full here.
I mean, he's gonna fold. I don't like this shove at all. I don't understand. I mean, I don't think he's not getting called unless Sam has a queen.
Right.
Or queen 7.
I was just looking forward to you all telling me how golden I was. I was thinking they're going to go.
Saying, wow, look at this.
They're going to go nuts when they see this.
152.
152.
I mean, he's going to find the fold. I don't think this is a good shove from Tony. What could he have? What could he be bluffing with here?
He's right.
Sam looks so strong. Sam looks like he's bet the flop. He's called the raise. He's called the bet on the turn. I mean, he obviously has something like a queen or a 7. Tony's just never bluffing in this scenario, ever.
Right.
I don't even know. Sam's just sort of he
I mean,
knows he's
well,
folding.
you know, how would the hand have gone down if Trickett had kings or aces?
He might have checked the flop a decent amount of the time. Sometimes he bets and then he calls once, and maybe he calls the turn as well, but he's never calling the river. The thing is, yeah, like Sam could have kings or aces or jacks, but he has queens way too. There's so many more combinations of queens and that it's just like this would be a suicidal bluff. You get him off of exactly aces, kings, or jacks or 10s, but you getting snap called for your entire stack by every queen in Sam's range. So it's just like he would never ever make this bluff. I don't even know what Sam is thinking about.
I mean, Luke's got 8,000. I mean, not even Tony. I mean, they don't. You couldn't do this.
It's like literally never bluff. Sam is just like he's tired. He just came in from Macau. He had 7s full. He likes the TV time. I don't know what he's doing. Why he's still in this hand, but we'll wait for him to get a you know a few bad beat words in. There's just no way he can call. You know, Tony had bet like 50,000, 45,000. He might have been able to make a call here.
So annoying. I tried to look weak with the whole hand. I was trapping. Now I am weak. Oh.
He can't level himself into a call here. He just can't be bluffing. There's just no draws or anything. You just have to have the complete airball 3-barrel on the dry board into the.
How much is it? 155?
Come on, Sam.
It would have been interesting if there had been a raise on the turn and the river bet was quite small in correlation to the pot. It's actually a big bet.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been interesting if there were a flush draw out there. There are a lot of conditional things that could have happened to make this hand more interesting and more likely to be a bluff. But there you go. Thanks. Thanks for wasting 5 minutes of my life, Sam.
You are lucky, so now you're supposed to consider it luck.
I mean, you know, he's
well, we have to hear what Tony has to say.
That he did that.
Points if that river doesn't come like
He had like ace jack or something.
I get 2 points.
Yeah, he's jack. Bill's sticking the needle in. Sam.
Proven that you're lucky. Now you have to consider this as an opportunity that the board paired and he has a perfect line to bluff, and that you have to pick it up.
Why is that a good card for a bluff?
Because it's Tony G.
Still queen or nothing.
Yeah, it's queen or nothing.
Yeah, you can't have a 4. So.
Right, it's just queen or nothing.
It was a terrible.
So I think it's
Tony, wasn't it?
Yeah,
right.
it's just
Tony G's been doing
What
that
is he
and playing
doing?
tight card, and then he's doing that to steal something.
It's just
That's
like,
one thing I was thinking.
honestly, I would prefer him checking to making the bet that he did.
Lost the money.
At least checking. If Sam had like the double float or something, or whatever, he could at least get to, or bet 65,000. Maybe he gets a crying call.
The funny thing
In
is,
Tony's
I have a
defense,
big hand
he only
at the
fought
funny
for
thing is on the
half of a millisecond before making that bet.
Yeah, I mean,
One resolute.
And Schwartz has moved all in.
hopefully it's better than Jack 10.
Mathematically, Franklin has to call him without looking, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
3 call.
And does Luke even have an overcard?
Sure, he has at least one. Probably just one from the side. There we go. He's fine.
Well, talk about a rough start to the Premier League. Luke Schwartz has had it in spades, and the 6 right in the door.
It's got some back doors here.
Show the guy is like
Got 4 of clubs up
It's
there.
something to work with. It's not like.
but it's not like air. It's not like
Put a queen there so I can walk away.
we can walk out of here.
I can't.
Look at that, huh? More hope for the ace of clubs.
Could be black.
It's real hope, man.
You just don't want the jack of clubs.
Phil and Tony do their best work in this arena.
Any club.
Phil's an excellent hand reader. He
Three
declares
o'clock.
you don't want the jack of
Take
clubs.
any 50.
He
Any
knows
black
the-
card.
which hands
will
beat which
peel black.
hands. I'm very
You
impressed.
need a 3 of clubs, kid. That's the card.
It's not going to do it.
Schwartz, first man out in the first heat of Group A Premier League. And that will put him under the cosh for the future.
Have to test it out.
Erik Seidel, big smile there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Luke's had a moment to catch his breath after the bust out. Talk to me about where the match went wrong for you.
I think I made one bad play versus Laak where I kind of knew he had trip aces, but I still tried to bluff him off it. There was a flush and a straight, and I thought that he could fold those hands, but he's not much of a deep thinker, and he just saw 3 aces and snap called me. But even after that, I still had starting stack, and then Sam made that crazy play versus me, which I snapped off with my jacks, and then he hit a flush on the reverse. So that was kind of that kind of ruined the tournament for me.
Join us after the break as the 7 remaining players continue to battle it out in this first league match.
Welcome back. It's the bagel for last season's runner-up, Luke Schwartz. That's 0 points, and we have 7 left at the table.
Well, there's 7 players left at this table, and there's not too much feeling sorry going around for Luke Schwartz right now, Vanessa.
No, I mean, he's he doesn't have that kind of personality where you just feel too bad when he busts out, does he?
One raise to 11. 3 4.
Tony getting a little hand and waking up with his stack, and
No, here we go. There's just no other option. I mean, 20 big blinds.
Oh,
4 call. 5 call.
had a brief vision of some Phil Hellmuth-esque.
Let's put 11 in first.
Tony's gonna
You
probably
took some money now from me.
Hollywood
I
a
had
little bit.
11,000.
It's too much to.
That's
If
fine.
Erik had about 15 big blinds, this might be a closer decision.
Put
but
11 and then how much more?
Tony's not even thinking about it.
I don't think
You
he
took
is either.
26.
No.
It took 11, okay. All right. Okay, that's fine.
If there was ever a spite call to be made, for some reason Tony feels like he's got that in him.
I think Tony has the spite speech in him a lot more than the spite call. You know, it's gonna sit there and give a speech
10, 20,
about how he's not gonna get pushed around right before he gets pushed around.
6.
Because the math, I mean, if the cards are flipped up, the math is quite close, but in this format, aren't you giving so much to the other players at the table by putting your chips in for racing, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to make this call, you'd have to have the assumption that Erik is shoving with like the Jack 10 suited, the 10-9 suited. Wow.
Ace Queen?
Wow. I'm pretty shocked that he made that call for 20. That's a lack of understanding about math, I think. No, I mean that's what I'm talking about. You know, a lot of these players are really great at deep stack poker, but when it comes to 20 big blinds, they just don't really understand ranges. And this, I think, is just a very marginal call for the 20. It's 22 big blind shove, and there's no antes out there.
I see it as spite. Tony thinks, I've got a great speech here for busting Erik Seidel, and I can't wait to put it into action.
Now just the jack.
Now just the jack, 4 outs.
But
Not bad.
He's the only one who can put the silver lining on these 4 out moments. Not bad. You got 4 outs.
It's better than like you could be drawing dead if you came a king.
Yeah, it's pretty
King,
good.
King 6, and then 4. Now it's 0%. You know.
Seidel doesn't even want to hang around for the abuse.
All right, good luck, all.
Bad luck.
Erik is just not shoving 22 big blinds light.
Erik gets the best cards though.
Sure, and the risk Tony was taking there, I mean, he was going to be left with I think like 240 or 250 losing that pot, which was going to put him under pressure.
And you're going to, oftentimes double up a very dangerous player that has position on you. I mean, I just don't, I don't like it.
You're going out now with 2 points, so going into the next heat with the 2 points, not the bagel, which is 0, which is Luke Schwartz. How's that going to change your game?
Well, yeah, it does affect things. I mean, the one thing you don't want to do is get knocked out, being one of the first people knocked out. It really puts you in a bad spot. But, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Might have to pick it up a little bit the second one. I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
Can't just dump that hand.
A reminder about the points given out in the league. Players all play 4 matches against each other, and the points, 16 points for first, 11 for second, 8 for third, 6 for fourth, down 3, 2, and the bagel, 0 points for the first man out. As it is, Tony G, he's played in every Premier League, never won one. Although a runner-up finish to J.C. Tran, 3rd place to Andy Black.
Re-raise 27.
Fireworks gonna go on here, I think.
This means a lot to him. Does the dynamics of the last couple pots, does that widen Tony G's 3-betting range right now, or should Locke think serious about this?
I think in Phil's mind. At the same time, I think Phil's the kind of guy that's, it's so funny. Most guys would 4-bet this, but, to his credit, to Phil Locke's credit, we talked about he's not 4-betting light. If he's not 4-betting light, then why should he 4-bet the ace-king if he's not going to get action from the ace-queens and the ace-jacks? But at the same time, if Tony's got trash in his hand a decent amount of the time, then...
And by exercising pot control, Locke will, on average, be able to hang around longer if he's not going to win as many heats.
I'm going to look like a fool there. I folded big hand. I folded big there, kid.
Too good. I had a big hand.
I had
Biggest
you
hand of
beat
the day
again.
I had, I promise.
I had you beat again. You had like ace queen or something.
I had queens.
I should have called.
Sick. Like
My contention is that Locke is
Probably-
a
I'm probably not even
genius
supposed to open
selling
up
the
the hand,
story of
actually.
a fool. I think he's a marvel at it.
Most players, we don't know what would have come in the Turner River, obviously, but a lot of these players would be broke right now. And it wouldn't be to their detriment either, to their fault, because it's one thing if Erik's still around with 70K, but now everybody has over 250. It's not so bad to go broke with the ace-king anymore.
Well, Franklin deciding it was a good time to get busy. He has been quiet lately, but Trickett's now woken up with the aces. And does it look like a squeeze situation?
Well, of course,
dynamics?
but of course it looks like a squeeze. It's a great spot for a squeeze, but at the same time, there are great spots for squeezes because they're a great spot for squeezes, right? Like, the reason it's a great spot is because people usually have hands like king 3 suited and pocket 4s, and so at the end of the day, although people might give a suspicious eye, wonder what he's doing,
28.
they just don't have hands that are strong enough to really take any heat.
Right, and you really have to man up about the situation if you want to do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, we might see a light 4-bet. He's thinking about it, obviously. He's thinking about stack sizes right now, whether, it's a great stack size for him to put some pressure on Sam. He's been kind of tight.
It makes sense for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, this is a great play by Matt. He's run into it at a bad time, but if he puts it up to 65K, Sam, with his stack, just really has an all-in or fold decision. I think it's going to go to about 60, 65. Okay, 57.
And now Trickett has to decide between calling or going all in.
Yeah.
And
Or I mean, he doesn't have to go all in. I mean, he could. Matt made it small enough where he could actually make it like 95K and give the illusion of fold equity.
And you can only call here if you put hands like Franklin has in his range.
Which
hands that are so, yep.
I think he does. You know, we talked about the Mormon school of poker. Sam is from the UK. You know, I think he knows these guys. He knows where he learned. You know, Matt learned to play in that same school. Like I said, I mean, if you 4-bet, you can put him on 7 high. This is actually better. It's a king high. Not a very good king high, of course. But.
And I wonder how polarized Franklin's.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, I think he's just hoping that.
Trickett's hoping that Franklin did this as something like ace queen and then might make a bad call.
With like ace king or kings or queens, yeah, you know. Yeah.
That's how it's done.
Yeah, I mean, he's just hoping that he has a big hand. I think he decided that the risk was too high. He wasn't. You know, I think he thinks that if he calls there, Matt's going to shut down unless he hits something. So.
Just the 6 players left in this opening Group A match of Premier League Poker 5. Matt Franklin, he had more, but he still got the chip lead. Vanessa, when you sit down to play, I mean, is there going to be any thought, because one of the fun things about Premier League is that after the match is over, players are all going to go and get to see what everyone had. The hands are out there. Trying to set up images and plays for later, or at least make sure, you know, you're staying balanced because you don't want people to get a line on your play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those should be considerations in an ideal world. I think that might have been what was going on with Sam when he shoved the ace-4.
We just have aces everywhere.
Yeah, there have been a lot of aces so far. I don't know how many aces are in this deck.
Yeah, and Frankenberger folded a big hand in the middle as well.
29.
Yeah.
But
this is a huge re-raise. I mean, I guess he's out of position. It's almost 3 times, you know.
I'm sure a lot of what Franklin knows about Tony G comes from either watching TV or advice he might have gotten from some friends. And I wonder what he's been told and what strategy, you know, he's come up with his own mind. Is this a loose call?
Yes, it is.
In position.
You know, it is. It's not a bad loose call. It's a call that I make a decent amount. I mean, the thing is, he opened up under the gun. I think it really matters what he thinks that. Here we go. So Tony's actually checked it. It's not a bad spot at all to check.
Tony can get crafty. You know, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Check.
So check.
I would have liked to see him bet there. You're kind of not getting chips unless Matt has a queen. I think Matt's going to check this a lot. Yep, he's checking it back. Tony lost some value there.
How do you like the all-in now?
He's just going to get snap called, and he could have made a lot more chips in that situation if he had bet the turn. Or the problem is once Matt checks back, he's either got like a middle pocket pair, or he's got nothing, or he has a queen in his hand. And I think the only way you're going to get 2 streets of value, I don't think he's betting any of those hands. I just think Matt's almost never, ever betting that turn.
Well, 2 levels in the books, and who would have believed it? Everything going perfectly in this Premier League so far for Tony G.
Poker is just the best game in the world. It's entertainment for me. I love to play. I love to take on the big guns, the smart people, the clever people, and the donkeys, obviously. And all the fish, I have to eat all the fish too. But I've had great WPT events and great sort of TV events, great cash game events all over the years, and really lucky to be part of the poker community. And being hated or admired, I'm pretty happy as long as they have an opinion about me. I'm done my job.
You're not gonna mess with the G. Feel your heart?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Robots don't have a heart.
You got a beautiful tie as well.
Yeah.
Am I getting out of line?
With people saying that I intimidate my opponents, I think it's very fair to say that. I do. And people are very nervous. They're in awe. They don't know what's going to happen. But that's fair enough because I don't know what I'm going to do until I do it. And I've done a lot of crazy, weird things over the years, and perhaps this Premier League could bring out the worst or the best in me. With Premier League, I've had a 3rd and a 2nd, so I'm looking for that 1st place. My history in the Premier League could be a bit better, but it's pretty consistent. I think I'm pretty happy with what I've done.
This is the best show in poker. This deal is just incredible. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I haven't won one hand. I'm ready to die. You're not ready to die.
You've declared war. I've accepted your terms.
You just shut up.
To win the Premier League 5 would make my poker career wholesome. So it's a huge challenge and a very important step to take to keep progressing further as a poker player and to prove to the whole world that I can beat the best, the youngest, the fittest, the freshest players in the world, like Patrick Antonius. I can come and get them and nail them and crunch them and eat them for dinner. And this is my year to take it all, take everything they have here.
Find out after the break if Tony G can maintain his chip lead in his bid to win maximum points here in Vienna. Frankenberger's been really interesting in my point of view so far. I think because obviously the kind of success that he's had, and he's got a reputation as a splash it about aggressive player, but he hasn't been that here. It's like he's really decided to just tighten up early and let the value of the league standings take over. Very disciplined.
Yeah, he's definitely disciplined. I think he's just trying actively not to put himself in spots where he's going to have difficult decisions. And when you're playing against tougher opponents, you know, it's not a bad line to take. So here he is out of position with ace-king suited. It's a very standard 3-bet against the button raise.
It's such a standard 3-bet that calling opens you up to just a wormhole, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would hate a call here. I can't imagine he's just going to call here. All right, there it is.
In some ways, the hand starts, well, I mean, Trickett wouldn't be culpable, but the hand starts now as far as Katchalov's. Katchalov can't ignore the fact that Frankenberger has barely moved to chip this heat.
No, but at the same time, with the suited ace, I really would not be surprised to see him take a flop here. He doesn't know how tight that Andy, you know, it's been 40 hands. Andy might have been folding the 9-3 off. He doesn't know he's folding the king-queen and the king-jack. So when you're up against you're raising on the button with such a good hand like ace-7 suited, I wouldn't be surprised to see him take a flop, especially if he feels like he has an advantage post-flop over Andy.
And he is one of those guys, Katchalov, that would just, as far as the Premier League goes, you have to look at him as more of the flop and turn and river player than the pre-flop player.
There's a flop.
And this is it.
There's a flop.
Both players need to want to get it in a sense.
Well, Eugene doesn't want to get it in, but he certainly wants to tell Frankenberger that he wants to get it in, meaning, you know, get him off of queens or jacks or the 9 high or whatever. I mean, it'd be interesting to look at stacks. Eugene's the shortest stack, so I don't think he'll mind playing this so aggressively. If it's one thing, if he had a large stack, he might decide to play it more passively just because of, you know, moving up in the slots. But I think given how short he is, I wouldn't be surprised to see him make a raise that'll commit himself here.
Right. Andy's made it 30, so Eugene's got 200. I mean, if Katchalov was to call here, the turn bet becomes so big that you can't push anybody off anything.
I mean, we're almost for sure going to see Eugene make it 80 something and call it off.
Raise.
Yeah.
80.
I'm getting good at these sizings here.
Yeah, you've definitely had some experience in this area.
You know, if Eugene had been, you know, in 4th or 3rd place, it's a lot closer of a decision, but this is a no-brainer against a small blind raising range. Andy could have pocket 9s, pocket 8s. I mean, it's just like, there's so many hands that can't stand this kind of pressure. You know, Eugene's gotten kind of unlucky here to run into the one that can.
All in and
absolutely, and now we're racing, although Frankenberger's side is the favorite.
Yeah. The thing is, when, you know, Andy has the worst hand, one of the worst hands Eugene can see. I mean, if he doesn't have the ace-king, if he has the king-queen, Eugene has an extra 3 outs. So it's just, it's a really bad, unfortunate situation for Eugene, but I like the way they both play their hand, and this is just one of those things in poker that plays itself.
Katchalov all in, and Frankenberger with about 100K back in that neighborhood, but the pot of the most concerned. Both these guys thinking, this is not my Premier League, but make it easy for me. Let's get off to a good start here.
Red deuce, anyone?
Make the first big one count.
Out of the pack now.
I can feel a red 6.
A red 6.
See that? You know.
That was one of the extra 3 outs
Yeah,
that
exactly.
could have come.
See if you can get him to look back, right, when
So-
you say the jump.
But
See,
for
buddy.
Katchalov, 6th place means 3 points,
all day
which
and then
isn't a disastrous start.
Didn't count.
No, absolutely not. Especially with this structure now, we see, you know, the top.
That's the way to
All
do
you
it.
have to do to get a chance to make the final table is not finish in the last 3 spots.
Gee, now Frankenberger only a farthing behind. And if they come 1-2, it's going to completely throw this Premier League Group A up in the air, at least as far as the odds makers are concerned.
Going out of this heat with 3 points is Eugene. How's this affecting your strategy for the next round?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't looked. I guess I'll have to do some homework when I get home, figure out what I have to do. So I'll see. I haven't really thought about it yet.
And the cards weren't treating you so well today, but how are you feeling about your play?
Yeah, I didn't really have many hands. I feel okay. I think, you know, most of the hands that I had were fairly standard, so not much to say.
We'll see you in the next round. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Have a look at this, G and Frankenberger. And, you know, you mentioned, Vanessa, how upset Schwartz is going to be, the bubble between 7th and 8th. It's so quick in this Premier League that you're going to see those league standing dynamics come in as far as, like, even the next heat. Guys who are under it are going to have to change their strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big drop-off.
And now that you have these 5 players left, you really start looking at trying to gamble for the top 2 spots. Is that what you would be doing?
Well, what's the points?
Well, right now, the 6th place got 3 points, so it goes 4 for 5th, 6 for 4th, but then 8 for 3rd, and
11 and 16, right?
11, 16. Sorry.
Yeah, I think towards this point you really are looking towards
I don't know what I'm doing.
it's a very top-heavy
You guys
structure at this point. So yeah, I think you're right. You should be looking to play more aggressively. And look, I mean, you have Matt taking you off a flop with pocket 3s. Tony's raised with ace 8. You know, you knew it would open up when it got 5-handed, and we're seeing some of that.
Right. I guess you could talk about it being a top 3 heavy structure, perhaps. There is the next big bubble is there.
Right.
So turn bet 35.
Phil has flopped a huge hand.
Right.
3-4.
And
7 raise 200.
Jeez, I missed all the pre for this. This pot's
What's
gotten
he
big
doing?
quite quickly.
What's he doing?
What's the thought?
I mean, I don't know. He's thinking he doesn't want to see a turn. He probably has at least 50% equity. I mean, this is something you see out of Phil a number of times. Tony's just Hollywooding. But, you know, Phil, honestly, it's just a huge overraise.
Go the jack of hearts.
You know, it's pretty much going to always be
I do
a
better when he
huge draw.
folds from an EV player, I'm pretty sure.
Feels really good when knowing our 3-bet you're like not happy, are you? But then when someone cold call bets,
No, I love that.
teach him.
Yeah, that'll teach him.
Yeah,
someone's got to screw that guy.
You get him, and then I go all in. You're like, oh, fair enough to him. No,
Exactly right.
Fair enough.
Was I thinking that loudly?
No, that's exactly
what
what goes through
everyone-
everyone's brain.
Right.
Yeah, that'll show you. Yeah, that's what you think, don't you? You're damn.
Teach him. He's like, oh wow.
I need to defend that.
Yeah.
As predictable as Tony G does seem when you're watching him, you know, you look at his record, and especially the big game that used to be the high stakes cash game, TV cash game from Las Vegas, and Tony just destroyed on that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you always say to yourself, how can he get paid? How can he get paid?
Right.
How can he get paid?
I don't know. That's what I've been wondering. So these are the fun pots to see when they both missed. Who opened this pot? Tony opened this pot from the button, and because Andy defended his big blind.
And Andy really hasn't thrown, you know, he did make a couple of steals early on, little tickles, but this would be him coming out of the box.
So he's the type of guy. Okay, this is a great example of like what Like, what? Like,
Right.
What is he representing here?
Right, especially on the ace-high board. Nobody ever check raises an ace-high board these days with an ace.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Tony call here, honestly, with jack high, just to take it away later. Okay, so this is the thing. So he winds up just folding, giving him respect. I mean,
to you, it's a great board to do it on, but if you're going to try and represent something, you can't do it by check raising.
But I think that's the genius thing. You're asking me why Andy Frankenberger wins. I think this is why. It's because with most people, they check raise that board, and you can just float them, and because you just think, what could you have here besides a set or two pair? So I'm just going to take it away later. With Andy, like, I think in the back of your mind you're thinking, what if he just has ace 10? You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, why would he raise? But like, why does he do anything? And so you're worried that he's just making some play that doesn't make any sense. And so I think that might be why he wins in those spots when people don't have anything, because they're scared to invest a lot of chips on their read that he probably doesn't have anything, because he just might.
Well, we're going to see a multi-way pot here, it looks like. Locke's opened up early. Frankland is called on the button. He certainly had options there. And now Trickett's looking, is this a squeeze spot?
He's thinking about it. He's also thinking about calling.
I mean, who of the three players, who has the biggest potential to have a hand that they would have called a squeeze with, I wonder?
4 players?
Well, Phil probably would have folded.
But I mean, range-wise, I mean, could Franklin ever be like super strong here, or
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you might decide to cold call Phil Locke, knowing that he doesn't call 3-bets very often.
37.
You might decide to cold call with a big hand. I mean, the thing is, he usually doesn't have a huge hand, but.
And here's Locke. He's just going to get maximum value 4 ways with top pair.
It's unbelievable. It's like people not adjusting. This is what Phil Locke does well, but it's like, has he shown down the hands when he's just checked top pair every time? I mean, I think he's shown him down. Okay, so he check raised that. I don't like that play at all, but I don't know why he's check raising there. But once again, I think he's just playing. It's working. I mean, it's working. People are used to someone checking. That means they don't have anything, so they decide to bet. But I think with Phil, like, I'm more scared when he checks, than when he bets.
This Group A is so wide open right now, isn't it? Who do you like right here to win this first heat?
Oh my God! I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, I would still
that
take
hand
Sam.
Took me above chip average.
It does seem he's a little off his game
like
tonight, though.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just coming from Macau. I think he's playing some high stakes games. He's probably tired. Tony's playing well. Tony's never not a favorite. I mean, Matt Franklin's playing well. Phil Locke, I mean, it's really anybody's game, honestly, right now. I couldn't even take a guess. Who would you take?
I'd take. I think I'd take either Tony or Phil as well. I think Tony's a great closer. I mean, if there's a guy who loves to be ahead, it's Tony G. And yeah. But I do have I've had a strong feeling for a while now that Andy Frankenberger is going to win this Premier League. So this would be a hell of a start.
Oh my God! What? Oh. Whoa! Oh, Phil check raised. What? He actually got Tony to fold the best hand. That's his tight image there. That's a weird check raise, but I guess it worked.
I mean, fairly amazing stuff there, really. And that's, I guess, the reason that you shouldn't be checking the ace there if you're Tony G. It opens, it makes the decision tougher later on.
I still would have liked to see a call out of Tony G. Honestly, I think a call just looks so strong there.
Each of these 5 players has a reason to be very happy about how things have gone so far. Trickett's the short stack, but he was nearly out twice.
Such a brilliant raise because you just declared a break, right? Yeah, smart. The dinner break raise,
Geez, this is the first loose G3 bet.
But if I fold, I have to go home because then I'd be playing bad poker, so I call so I can stay.
He's saying it would be really bad to fold this hand to a single re-raise.
Now I see the flop. I try not to lose my stack to Tony G. I check to the power.
Problem is that, you know, you run into problems on flops like these, but that's just kind of like the way it goes. Wow.
Missed bet?
Yeah.
I check to the power.
And why should Tony G always bet that flop?
I mean, you saw what happened earlier when Phil had ace-king, right?
The power bets.
Right.
Like, Phil just, like, doesn't like play back at you. I mean, you know, it's like if he has ace high there, he's gonna just fold most of the time.
Right,
I mean,
and if he has jacks, he'll call.
I don't know.
yeah.
Even though my
But,
equity
like,
feels like it's
It's
as
just
high
like
as
you're. That's
20
why you
grand,
re-raise
I'm
queen
like,
8 is so that you can bet like those the 10-5-4 boards.
I feel like I finally
And
had
against a
something.
player like Phil, who might have
But I
king
don't
queen,
know.
he might have ace
I still have
jack,
to
all
get
those
another
hands.
card.
There's so many hands you're gonna fold that you have to continue against.
Nice hand, kid. Nice hand.
3 levels done, Vanessa. And who do you has done the most with what they've been given?
I think, honestly, I think Phil Laak has really been doing well. I mean, he's been given a lot of those sort of like top pair kinds of hands. Granted, he's had a lot of them, but he's played them in a way to, I think, really maximize his chips. And unless people start catching on, I think he's going to continue to play that sort of passive style and get a lot of chips from people sort of bluffing into him.
We're on a quick break here. So, Phil, what's going through your mind right now?
Okay, it's kind of like when you're in the middle of a good video game, you're a young person, you're in like 7th grade and you're killing it, but you haven't beaten anyone's high score for the day, you don't have your 6th guy, and you don't know how it's going to go, but you feel truly zoned in. So right now, up to this moment, I'm like, wow, okay, I feel like I have a heartbeat on what's going on, whatever. You know, the operation can be a success, but the patient dies. And so I feel like I'm in a successful operating room right now, but I don't know. You know, it's nervous. These guys are smart. They know all the tricks. It's tough.
Chip leader here on the break. Andy, talk to me about how you feel about how the game's going for you.
Yeah, I can't complain, chip leader. I definitely ran well to hold there with just ace-king against the flush draw, so feeling pretty good right now.
Thoughts on the other players' play?
Well, I've got Sam on my left, and he's awfully tough. So he's pretty much made me play super focused, which is good. You know, I don't want to get in a big pot against him out of position. But, you know, I shake it up a little bit. Just did a successful check raise there against Tony. So I try to mix up my game a bit. But, again, with Sam on my left, got to keep it pretty tight.
Okay, thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks.
Join us after the break when the first league match resumes here in Vienna.
Five players remain here for the first heat of the Party Poker Premier League main event. Let's get back to your hosts, Jessie May and Vanessa Selbst.
These are the important stages of this Group A first heat. As far as this league goes, I mean, Vanessa, which of these 5 is going to jump out and take that 16 points? Now is the time, with the stacks kind of tight, for someone to make a mark.
I mean, this is the perfect spot for like Andy Frankenberger, for instance, to really use that tight image that he's cultivated to seize some of those crucial pots when there's a bunch of money out there. We'll see if he can do it.
7-4.
Well, Tony's getting busy. I have this theory about Tony G, which is sort of all the deficiencies that people perceive in his game. They're erased when he has the chip lead. He's a great front runner.
Once I figured out that you were putting on, I should have not let you know that I figured that out then.
Look at Franklin, the same idea that Tony has, but get busy with the 3-bet rather than the open.
I can't believe how foolish I played that hand.
It's a nice spot. You know, he's on the button. He knows that it's very difficult for Tony to play a hand out of position, putting, you know, a 10th of his chips in pre-flop.
I didn't see the hand.
So there we go. He knows Tony's just going to fold so many hands. It's a great aggressive play from Matt.
Great aggressive play, great timing, and also an indication that the 3-bet is going to be much, much stronger than the open right now.
Yeah, and that's what we predicted. You know, I think you see early on, you know, people are going to be much more inclined to call 3-bets, so the players are hanging back a little bit. And here, this is exactly the stage. I mean, I think Matt has correctly put together that right now the 3-bet is the weapon of choice given the stack sizes.
7-4.
And if you want to get away with your 3-bets, you actually have to be quite tight with your opening range, don't you? especially early up.
It looked like, you know,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think your 3-betting range and your opening range can be, they can be kind of two distinct things. I think it's not just enough to say they're an aggressive player. How are they aggressive? Are they 3-betting you a lot, or are they just raising a lot to begin with?
Yeah.
Frankenberger's missed this flop completely from the big blind.
I've checked.
Let's see if...
I also think I can bluff.
Check this one.
I got a bluff.
Two check.
We'll see if you can give Frankenberger some rope into betting the flop.
Well, it's kind of the dream card for Frankenberger if you're going to have a hope.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him bet this one.
If it comes up, I'm going to try and do it, even though you're my buddy.
Tony's for sure going to call the turn. He's kind of checked this to control the size of the pot to induce some action.
It wasn't on the one. No.
These are the fun pots to see the rivers and how they play out. And
That's a bad card for Frankenberger.
Terrible card for him. Be really bad for him to keep up. These are the kind of spots where experience really pays off. You know Tony's got like the pair of tens, the pair of kings, could have a pair of queens now turn into trips. He could have the ace high, but more likely he would have just bet that on the flop. So I think this is the spot where you really just shouldn't be bluffing.
And yet, can it get through?
No. Not that size for sure. I mean, if he bets 75 or 80, it could get through, but he's bet a third of the pot.
Where's the one with the thing that's raised? With the
But I mean, even so, Tony is only beating a bluffing range, right?
Yeah, but he's just once he's checked the flop, I think against a player like Andy, I mean, I think you know you have to realize that once you give him rope, he doesn't really necessarily. He might be, you know, just thinking, oh, I can't win this without betting.
Thing, and I
wow. All right, I stand corrected.
So now it wasn't you.
Wow.
So look.
There again, the genius of Frankenberger. Maybe?
I thought to this point
I don't know.
I
I'm sort of a little bit of shock right now, actually. It's just such a small. I mean, obviously the thinking was that
Tony's let himself be sort of, I don't even say outplayed.
Out-leveled. He's out-leveled himself. He's thought, you know, he's thinking he's only bet a third of the pot. He can't possibly be bluffing. The problem with that thinking on that kind of a board is that there are just so few combinations. You know, it's so hard for. Andy has to have a king or a queen, and once the other queen comes, it's just like really hard for him to have those hands.
And you have to understand that if he is going to bet the 3-5 suited on that turn, he's actually betting like everything, basically.
Yeah, I mean he did pick up a club draw, so maybe he's not betting his like, you know, total air.
I don't know what it was. Crazy. But I remember thinking, oh my God, I had him beat. I had 2 overs with ace-7.
6 call. Heads up.
And you was thinking, don't worry, I'll put a big bluff on him again like I did in
No,
Monte
you remember that one.
No.
Check.
Franklin v. Trickett.
3-bet 17.
Here's where we see the actual poker being played. You know, this is short-handed, ranges change. Franklin's very aggressive. This is the kind of spot where he might barrel like a 9 or a 10, or not a 10, I guess a 9, or this is the kind of card that he's very likely to barrel.
6 check.
And it is a great card, obviously, the perfect card for Trickett.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised actually if he doesn't barrel this card. Knowing kind of like his thinking, he's thinking that Trickett's got a lot of small pairs, ace highs. Trickett's definitely just going to call here. I think he's going to give Matt a lot of rope to let him hang himself on the river.
But how often is Franklin double betting the single pair of kings?
Yeah, I mean, like that definitely, that's within his range as well, for sure. Like the good kings, like the king queens and the king jacks, he's going to bet those twice as well.
But he's also going to fold those to a check raise a lot.
A decent amount of the time. Not usually, but like the problem is this is such a great double barrel card in Franklin's minds, because like if Sam had a pair, like a hand, like instead of 6-7, if he had 6-8 or 6-9, it's a really tough spot. If he has a pair of 3s or ace high, it's a tough spot. So it's such a great double barrel card, and Trickett knows this. He knows that Franklin, while he may have some kings, he's also going to have a lot of total air.
And how good a triple barrel card is that? I mean, what does the triple barrel card have to be?
Well, that, you know, I think he can represent like a backdoor flush here. You know, I think this is the card he might very well go for, but no, he realizes that if Trickett calls twice, he's got at least a king, sometimes 2 pair. So I think they both played that hand very well.
Tricky with 2 pair on the turn.
Big smile from Sam, who's, after some early struggles, is probably starting to feel like it's time to make hay. You know, and Trickett will look around. I mean, obviously not intimidated by any lineup, but he'll look around and say, "Come out topped here, and I'm going to have a huge jump on the players who are my biggest threat."
5-4.
He says just the right thing, man. Now I'm thinking about how I could have busted him if that ace or a king came. You are the best, Tony G. You're in my head and I'm not even in it, you know? That's right, jack it up, because you know I got a call.
Just a little more.
And it's actually a real mini raise by G.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing I was talking about earlier. You know, we've talked about this before. He knows that he has an advantage post-flop, and he's in position, so I think he's gonna...
I checked the power.
Wow.
7 check. Bet 25.
Just demolished. He's demolished the board here, Tony G.
That's an amazing flop. And it's the kind of flop that I think Laak, you know, he thinks that if Tony's raising with big cards, he's just got it. Wow.
And G is one of those kind of guys who every once in a while just decides to go for a couple barrels with nothing, right? Get stubborn. I mean, you have to, how much more respect do you give this bet than the last one?
I mean, you should give it a lot more, but, you know, once again, it's the Tony G factor.
He just gets paid.
He just gets paid. Yeah, he shouldn't get any more money.
82.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Really?
Tony G factor.
He is the greatest front runner in the history of poker.
Oh, how did this happen? Well, calling pre-flop was how it happened.
Yeah, Phil can really pick any street, can't
That's how it happened.
he? He can really pick any street for reevaluating his decisions.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
Although he's going to get paid by so many hands also on that big river bet, isn't he? I mean, is he going to get a lot of Tony's hand? Only Tony's. What is Tony folding on the river there? Is it
his air?
Okay. It's actually been a bit of a separation now. Locke dropping down to, well, he's still got 30 big blinds, and Tony a pretty big leader now with more than double that.
Sam Trickett has a below average hand for Sam.
Middling flush.
I mean, just on the basis of whole cards dealt, Trickett really should have had this wrapped up by now.
If you qualify with the flush, if I paid all the way to get there.
You might even check
Funny thing is, the only hand he really made a lot of chips on was the time he had the worst of it going in, the ace-4. And he's tired of folding.
You think it's better to hesitate there?
One thing about,
that's an excellent question.
It feels like Frankenberger, a lot of guys who play a lot of hands from the big blind to raises, they do quite a bit of re-raising. Frankenberger seems to be much more comfortable than others playing pots out of position. Would you agree with that?
Better to go on fast.
Raise pots.
The probability that if it becomes an
yeah, I
emotional
mean,
thing,
he doesn't mind doing it. It's because people keep calling the turn and folding the river against him. This is what's going to happen. I mean, Sam is definitely going to call this turn.
He's there. You know, the juices are
and I wonder if he's picked up on what's going on. If Frankenberger's going to fire another bet, if Trickett's going to make the call. I mean, he's supposed to, you know, against a lot of players, you know, you call the turn thinking they might shut down, you might fold the river, but Andy's just not, doesn't seem like he knows that gear. He doesn't know.
Pull the trigger.
You know, I think that's where Frankenberger why he does well. Like you know, we're talking about it. If people assume that he's playing like everybody else, most of the time when people bet this turn and then they get called, no, they shut down.
I think Frankenberger deciding he was getting called, or at least not wanting to give chips to Trickett, perhaps. Frankenberger's stack is fairly okay right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also the, you know, shows some of the intimidation that I think Andy feels a little bit intimidated by Sam. Sam's got direct position on him, and I think he has a lot of respect for his game, and that kind of shows. I think that played a lot into the decision not to fire that river bet.
7-4.
Locke and Franklin, now the two shorter stacks. Franklin, of course, lost fairly big pot to Trickett now. He still has enough chips, Franklin, to open, but it's gonna start getting weird if he gets 3-bet.
Yeah, I mean, this would actually be a great spot to 4-bet light. Not just looking at the cards, but just because you know when it gets 5-handed that they've got to start 3-betting you. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see Sam put in a cold. Oh, I see. And he's just called.
And he's just called here.
Okay.
But
great spot for a squeeze, also. Great spot.
Identical, really, to the one where he squeezed before and had the aces.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam, part of him is thinking like they never believed me. Like, you know, the last time he squeezed, he got action from King 3. But at the same time, like I said, you know, squeeze spots are squeeze spots because people have Ace-9 and King 7, and you got to take some of them. And I think this is one that he might just very well take.
And Franklin's stack size is ideal to make the 3-bet with. As you said, he could make a light 4-bet, but it's still ideal to put pressure on Franklin.
Absolutely,
right now.
It's perfect. I mean, he's got 34 big blinds. Takes a lot of courage to stick it in with King 7 here.
The stuff going in Franklin's favor, besides what you talked about, is the idea of the point structure, which actually speak for making a well-calculated
look at that. That's great. That's
call too much.
You know, that's a perfect play. That's taking advantage of the situation. That,
like,
and
you know, 12
I think it's
checkers
plays
or
like
whatever,
that that really
put
separate
3
the
checkers
great
more, and I
players
see
from the good players.
It's Tony G who holds the chip lead with nearly 700,000, but Locke and Franklin are trailing at the bottom of the board. It's still all to play for, however, as our 5 remaining players continue to battle it out for a win.
Join us next time as we see who takes down maximum points in the first league match of Party Poker Premier League Poker 5.
It's really hard to pull the hand this good when you're eating chicken this delicious.
We love it. We love it.
I like this one better. I've got my friend the button.
If you have aces right now, I'll never talk to you again. I'm just the worst.